I remember the day my longing for adventure and companionship merged into a decision as spontaneous as the flip of a coin. My friends called me the passport bro because I collected stamps from different countries like kids collect baseball cards. But this time, my journey to Colombia was driven by more than just wanderlust. It was the whisper of romance that drew me in. A friend of a friend had met his now wife in the vibrant streets of Medellin, and their story painted pictures in my head of a love just waiting to be found in the colorful landscapes of Colombia. The flight landed smoothly in Medellin, the city of eternal spring. I was greeted by a tapestry of green mountains and a climate so perfect that it seemed nature itself was playing Cupid. After checking into my hotel, I took to the streets, hoping to soak in as much of the city as possible, perhaps even bumping into love along the way. I wandered through Botero Plaza, marveling at the exaggerated sculptures, their voluptuous forms a testament to the city's larger-than-life character. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I decided to grab a drink at a nearby bar. That's when I met her, Camilla. With laughter that bubbled over like a clear mountain stream and eyes as deep and mysterious as the Amazon, she was the personification of the country I had longed to explore. She approached me with a confidence that was disarming, her English tinted with the music of her native Spanish. We talked, we laughed, and before I knew it, hours had passed. She was fascinated by my travels, her questions painting a picture of a world she longed to see. In return, she offered me glimpses into her city, her culture. It was enchanting. We agreed to meet the next day and explore the city together. The day was a dream. Camilla showed me Medellin through her eyes, the street art in Comuna 13 that told stories of transformation, the taste of bandeja paisa that left my taste buds dancing with delight, the view from the metro cable that had us floating above a tapestry of houses clinging to the hillsides. As dusk fell, she suggested we grab a bottle of aguardiente and continue our conversations back at my hotel. It seemed innocent enough, a nightcap to a perfect day. So, we found ourselves in the loungeria of my suite, the city lights flickering like a sea of stars outside the window. She poured the drinks, and I found myself lost in her stories, her laughter. The warmth of the alcohol spread through my veins, but soon it was followed by a strange heaviness. My eyelids drooped despite my efforts to remain present. I chalked it up to the long day, the excitement, and perhaps the potency of the local liquor. The world faded to black. I awoke to a silence that was suffocating. My head pounded with the fury of 1,000 drums. My mouth felt like it was filled with cotton, and my heart dropped to my stomach as I took in the chaos around me. My suitcase was open, clothes strewn across the room like casualties of a battle, my laptop gone, my camera gone, the wallet that had been heavy with cash and cards gone. Even the watch my father had given me, the one I wore not just to tell time, but to feel a connection to home, vanished. Panic clawed at my throat as I stumbled to my feet, grappling with the reality of the betrayal. Camilla. It had to be her. Who else? But why? How? The pieces of the puzzle fell into place with a sickening click. The drink, the drowsiness, the trust I had so readily offered her. I rushed to the hotel phone, my Spanish dissolving into a frantic mix of English and half-remembered phrases from a language app. The hotel staff were quick to respond, their faces a blend of concern and professionalism as they surveyed the room. The police arrived, their questions a blur as I tried to piece together a description of Camilla through the fog that still gripped my mind. They listened, they took notes, and they promised they would do their best. But I could see it in their eyes. The odds were not in my favor. The next hours were a blur of statements, phone calls to cancel credit cards, and the sinking realization that my adventure had taken a dark turn. Yet, despite the loss, it was the betrayal that stung the deepest, the shattered image of a connection I had thought was real. The local authorities were sympathetic but frank about the challenges. Tourists were common targets, and unless I had some distinct way to identify her or the stolen items, there was little hope. Despair settled over me, heavy as the metalline humidity. Then, a thread of hope. The hotel had cameras. I sat with an officer as we combed through the footage, my heart thudding in my chest. And there she was, Camilla, her image grainy but unmistakable as she entered the hotel. And later, she left with a heavy bag I recognized as my own. Her camera had caught a clear shot of her face, but more importantly, it had captured the license plate of the cab she escaped in. The police officer's eyes met mine, a spark of determination in them that mirrored my own. It was a long shot, but they tracked the taxi through the city's network. The cab driver remembered Camilla distinctly, her charm, her stories, and her destination after leaving the hotel. She had directed him to a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, a place tourists rarely visited, a place she likely called home. The police moved with a speed and efficiency that surprised me. Within hours, they had located Camilla's residence, a modest house draped in bougainvillea, its walls as unassuming as the thief who lived within. They found her, and with her they found my belongings, tucked away in a duffel bag in her closet. My camera, my laptop, even the watch my father gave me were all there. It was surreal, watching her face shift from shock to defiance as the police confronted her. She offered no apologies, no explanation, other than a shrug of her shoulders and a claim that love in the city was as fleeting as the tourists who came searching for it. I got my possessions back, each item a bittersweet reminder of the lesson learned. The police congratulated me on my luck, on the fact that I had been vigilant enough to pursue the footage, and on their own swift action. They were not always so fortunate in such cases. The rest of my time in Colombia was spent in a haze of introspection. I still explored, still marveled at the beauty and resilience of the country, but a shadow followed me, a reminder that the search for connection can sometimes lead to unexpected places. I left Colombia with my suitcase a little heavier, and my heart a lot more cautious. Love, I realized, was not something to be found on a whim in a foreign land, but something to be built with time and genuine understanding. The passport bro's tale had taken an unexpected turn, but the stamps in my passport now carried a story of their own, a story of adventure, loss, and the ultimate recovery of more than just stolen goods. It was a recovery of trust in the goodness of strangers, for it was thanks to the diligence of a few that my faith in humanity was restored, albeit a bit wiser and more guarded. And as for love, I learned it was not a destination but a journey, one that required more than just a passport to embark upon. The scent of freedom and adventure was as intoxicating as the tropical air that wrapped around us when we disembarked at Suvarnabhumi Airport. We were a trio of passport bros, as we jokingly called ourselves. 3 lifelong friends from different corners of America, united by our thirst for travel and, admittedly, a dash of romance. Thailand was our latest canvas, a vibrant backdrop for memories yet to be painted. Our first few days in Bangkok were a feverish blur of neon lights, spicy street food, and the electric buzz of tuk-tuks zipping through the restless streets. We were drawn in by the city's pulsating rhythm, each beat seeming to promise a new encounter, a new story. On our 4th night, we decided to explore the famed nightlife of Patpong. The night markets were alive with energy, every stall a kaleidoscope of souvenirs and counterfeit goods, every bar and club doorway an invitation to another world. It was there, amidst the clamor and the calls of the market sellers, that I got separated from Jake and Carter. I had been haggling over a watch, a cheap imitation of a brand far beyond my budget, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find a woman with a smile as enigmatic as the Chao Phraya River. Her name was May, and her English, laced with the lilting song of her native tongue, was hypnotic. "Looking for something special tonight?" she asked, her eyes glinting with mischief. I nodded, perhaps too eagerly, feeling the pull of curiosity. She led me through a series of alleys, each turn taking us further from the neon and noise until we arrived at an unassuming door. "Secret club," she whispered, pressing a finger to her lips. very exclusive. The next thing I knew, I was being ushered into a world of opulence and mystery. The club was like a hidden chamber from a forgotten era, its patrons an eclectic mix of the city's elite. Drinks flowed, laughter rang, and for a moment, I felt like I had stumbled into another dimension. May stayed by my side, her presence both comforting and exhilarating. She introduced me to a drink I hadn't seen before, a local concoction that tasted of sweet lychee and potent spirits. The drink hit me quickly, and the room began to spin gently, as if I were caught in a slow-moving carousel. That's the last clear memory I have of the night. I awoke to coldness and a sterile smell that clawed at my consciousness. My eyes refused to open at first, and when they did, the world was a bleary haze. I was lying in a tub, ice cubes clinging to my skin, a searing pain arching across my back. Confusion gave way to terror as I realized I couldn't feel my feet. I tried to call out, but my voice was a hoarse whisper, lost in the silence of the room. The room itself was bare, the walls a stark white that seemed to close in on me. Time passed, or perhaps it stood still. It was impossible to tell in that empty space. Then, voices, English, tinged with the worry that had become my only companion. Jake and Carter burst into the room, their faces a complex tapestry of relief and horror as they took in the scene before them. "Jesus, man," Jake exclaimed, rushing to my side. His hands were shaking as he checked my pulse, his training as an EMT kicking in despite the shock. "We've got to get you to a hospital now." Carter was already on his phone, his words a mix of Thai and English as he tried to convey the urgency to whoever was on the line. The trip to the hospital was a nightmare. Every bump in the road sent daggers of pain through my back, each turn a reminder of the violation I had endured. Jake held onto me, his grip a lifeline, while Carter's voice was a steady stream of reassurances that I barely registered. At the hospital, a flurry of white coats and urgent voices took over. I was wheeled away, poked, prodded, and scanned. The pain began to recede beneath the tide of medication, but the fear remained, a relentless undertow. When the doctor finally came to my bedside, his face was a mask of professional calm, but his eyes couldn't hide the gravity of his words. "One of your kidneys has been removed," he said. It was a professional job, no doubt to be sold on the black market. The room seemed to spin anew, but this time there was no alcohol to blame, just the stark, sobering reality of the words that echoed in my skull. Kidney, stolen. The police came, their questions a barrage that I could hardly keep up with. Jake and Carter provided what information they could, recounting their frantic search, the clues they followed, a dropped watch, a mention of a club no one seemed to have heard of, the piecing together of my likely route. The embassy was involved, and suddenly my story was not just mine, but part of a larger narrative of crime and vulnerability in a city that danced on the edge of darkness and light. The recovery was slow, a process measured not just in physical healing, but in the grappling with the psychological aftermath. My friends never left my side, their presence a reminder of the strength of bonds forged over years and tested under the most harrowing of circumstances. We spent the rest of our time in Thailand, within the whitewashed walls of the hospital. I was the center of a story that made its way through the backpacker grapevine, a cautionary tale that seemed to grow more elaborate with each retelling. When I was finally cleared to fly back to the States, I was a different man. The naive excitement I had boarded the plane with had been replaced by a deeper, more cautious perspective. The world was vast, filled with wonder but also shadows. Back home, the scar on my back became a silent testament to the journey and the cost of searching for love in all the wrong places. I learned to live with one kidney, to move on, to travel again, but never without the awareness of the fragility of trust and the price one might pay for a moment of reckless abandon. The passport bro's tale had taken an unforeseen detour into the dark alleys of human greed, and I, the least adventurous of our trio, had paid the price. Yet, in that payment, there was also a gift. the knowledge that friendship, unlike fleeting romance, was a currency that could never be stolen or sold. It was the true treasure I had found in Thailand, and it was enough. The rhythmic pulsing of the bachata music felt like the heartbeat of the Dominican Republic as I stepped off the plane in Punta Cana. I was Mark, a guy from a small Midwestern town in the United States, with a heart too big for his chest and dreams too wide for the horizon that had cradled his life thus far. This trip wasn't just a break from the cornfields and slow rivers of home. It was the quest of a romantic, hoping to find that missing piece in a land of sun, sea, and sky. On my third evening, I wandered into a dimly lit cafe in Santo Domingo, walls adorned with paintings of meringue dancers and shores lined with palms. There, under the gentle glow of a lantern, was Camilla. Her smile was like the crescent moon, subtle but capable of illuminating darkness. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself entranced by the depth of her passion for life, her commitment to her work at the local clinic, and her love for her homeland. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Camilla and me grew. The possibility of love brushed against my skin like the soft ocean breezes. We shared everything, from our favorite foods to our deepest fears, except, unbeknownst to us both, the one truth that would redefine everything. The day I learned about the invisible thread that had woven its way into the tapestry of my life was an ordinary one. The clinic was routine, almost mundane. Camilla had encouraged me to get a checkup, citing the importance of health in a country where she saw too many forget its value. The results were a piece of paper that shattered my world, a positive HIV test. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The stages of grief became a wheel that spun with dizzying speed. Camilla was just as shocked, her own test revealing the source of this uninvited chapter in our lives. She hadn't known, and the guilt that enveloped her was a maelstrom that threatened to drag her beneath its dark waves. This wasn't a story of malice or deceit, but one of life's cruel twists, where fate had penned a narrative neither of us could have foreseen. Our relationship, once a blossoming flower under the Caribbean sun, had wilted into something else, a complex mix of companionship and shared adversity. We couldn't go back to the way things were, yet we couldn't deny the bond that this shared hardship had forged between us. I chose to stay in the Dominican Republic for a while, volunteering at the clinic with Camilla, turning our pain into purpose, helping others navigate the rough waters we now knew all too well. Together, we worked, laughed, and sometimes cried under the same sun that had witnessed the beginning of our story. Months rolled by, and with the counsel of wise doctors and the support of newfound friends, I learned to carry my diagnosis not as a sentence, but as a facet of my existence, hard and real as the stones that lined the streets of Zona Colonial. When it came time to return home, the goodbye was a silent conversation of glances and half-smiles with Camilla. No promises of eternal love were made, no vows of undying allegiance. Instead, we shared a nod, a recognition of the journey we had traveled, the resilience we had discovered, and the ambiguity of our future. Back home, the fields of Indiana were the same, but I was irrevocably changed. I dedicated myself to speaking, advocating, and educating, channeling my experience into a force for good. The world around me moved with a familiarity that both comforted and confined. Love, I realized, was not a trophy to be won in far-off places, but a complex mosaic crafted from every encounter, every challenge, every moment of joy, and every tear shed. And as I walked the fields under the wide open sky, I understood that life is not just the light or the shadow, but an ever-shifting dance between the two. My heart, still too big for my chest, had learned a new rhythm, syncopated by the beats of loss and hope, despair and courage. And in that space between beats, I found a profound peace in not knowing the melody that the future would play. The story did not end, nor did it offer a neat conclusion wrapped in a bow of clarity. It simply continued, each day a fresh page, each decision a stroke of the pen in a narrative that was wholly mine to write.